Hi there and a very warm welcome. I'm Tom Poland and welcome to this edition of the Turbo Business Interview where we give you one business breakthrough idea in less than 5 minutes. My guest today is a long-term colleague. Very warm welcome to Mark Rosenberg. Mark, good morning, sir.
Tom, good morning. Thanks for inviting me on.
Mark is from Balanced Curve. Is it .com or .com.au?
Just .com.
Just .com. Keep it simple, yep. Balancedcurve.com. And for those of you who don't know Mark, he's the Managing Director of Balanced Curve and is an accredited executive coach and mediator. A very skillful thing to do that, mediation. He is also a member of the advisory board for the Center of Conflict Dynamics and Mediation Training Institute at Eckerd College in the good old USA, which is pertinent to this interview. When you hear the subject, you'll realize why. Mark's career actually spans roles in corporate law, marketing and management, including senior executive positions in Caltex Australia and Sydney Olympic Park Authority pre-Sydney Olympics. Mark completed his undergraduate law degree in the University of New South Wales and a Masters of Laws from the University of Pennsylvania and a Master of Management from MGSM, which is Macquarie something.
Macquarie Great.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the bottom line, he's a really smart dude, okay? So, and you'll see why in a moment. Now, Mark's specialty is the subject of today's interview, which is mastering conflict. Mastering conflict in the workplace, I think particularly was the focus of his course. Now, Mark, as you know, we've got 5 minutes for the interview. When the countdown timer reaches 0 and the buzzer goes off, the interview is cut, whether you are in full flight or mid-sentence. So you accept that challenge?
I do. I feel like I'm at the Commonwealth Games.
Well, this is more Olympic standard. Okay, now let's, I know the Commonwealth are on at the moment. Okay, great. So your time starts now. Mastering conflict. Why should people want to master conflict?
I guess the question is really, can you afford not to? Conflict's inevitable. So the starting point is conflict's inevitable. Unless you're a hermit, you're going to experience conflict if you're working with anyone. And I guess the challenge is then, if it's inevitable, how do I take advantage of it? People are different. So, different perspectives, different motivations, different priorities, and that always inevitably leads to conflict if you're doing anything important. When it's not managed well, what you end up with are a lot of negative outcomes. And what I'm talking about is, people in the workplace will get really stressed, they'll be quite unhappy. You'll get people who just stop talking to each other, withdraw. You get the silos that are created. You get poor communication generally. And the end game is productivity drops, and ultimately people leave the organisations, which creates its own expense. So it's a very expensive exercise not to be good at it, and all of the best leaders and managers are constantly good at this stuff.
It's very interesting because it's something I guess we're kind of in the background. We're always aware of the potential for conflict, and certainly when we're in situations of disagreement. And it seems like, now that I'm talking to you about it, it seems like such a basic and elementary skill to master, and yet it's, most organisations are totally bereft of the ability to manage or to master conflict. And what you're saying is it can actually be turned into a very productive thing. So how do people become...
I think people don't like it.
Right.
Yeah, people don't like it.
Yeah. So it's stressful, so staff turnover, people stop communicating. You talked about silos where people are working on their own and not connecting, and very often in team projects or in between divisions where collaboration is very important. So how do people become better at managing or mastering conflict?
I sort of talk about, there's 3 steps. The first step is really, you've got to keep your cool. Conflict inevitably involves emotions, and we go into those sort of fight-flight responses, which are sort of almost bad reflexes. And the problem with those is they help us survive as a species, but they're not so great in the workplace. So the first thing is you've got to learn how to stay cool and be aware of when you're losing it. The second step's really, you've got to then slow down and reflect. And this whole idea of reflection is really powerful. And it's reflection in terms of what's going on for me here, what's happening, why am I getting anxious, why am I reacting how I am, what's the information I'm relying on, what am I thinking, what have I done to contribute to this? What might I do? What do I want? That's the really important question. So that sort of idea of reflecting on, what's going on for you, but you've also got to reflect on what's going on for the other person here. What are they thinking? Why are they thinking that? How are they feeling? What have they done before? What actions have they taken? What do they want? and where's the common ground. So that's sort of the second step, is just this idea of reflecting better. And then the third step is then really being able to skillfully engage with the other person. So working on developing communication and collaboration skills so you can engage with the other person. Those are the three things.
Sounds simple.
Yeah, it sounds simple. And it is, but you've just got to practice.
Practice, but practice with the right technique. I mean, it sounds really what you're advocating is that people get to a level of people get to a level of consciousness where they become aware of what's going on unconsciously, and rise above that to actually master the conflict. So there's
a friend of mine talks about becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, observing the discomfort. We've got just over a minute left. I want to me this is a fascinating subject, and you and I have worked together for many years now, so I have a bit of an advantage as to knowing exactly how powerful this can be and the cultural change. And folks, those of you who don't know Mark, and I guess most of you won't, to be realistic, Mark's a master at bringing this change into cultures and embedding it, and he's got quite a specific system for embedding it. But 45 seconds left. Where do people? Your website is www.balancedcurve.com. There's an excellent blog which I subscribe to and have done for some time. I recommend people subscribe to that. Any other resources before we finish off, if we get time for the last question?
I think go there, and then if people are interested, they can come in and I'll direct them where they need to.
25 seconds left. If you could offer people one piece of advice on how to manage conflict, what would that one piece of advice be? 20 seconds.
Be curious. Try and recognise that if somebody's got a different view to you, they think it's reasonable. So your job is then to try and understand, why would a reasonable person think differently to me? Because if you can get them to see that you've understood them and that you've listened, then they'll start being prepared to listen to you. So that's the key.